My name is Rita McNally, and I'm presently co-chair of the Domestic Violence Roundtable in Brookline. We try to bring information to people in the community, to organizations in the community, so that they're aware. And we say we're partners with the police, but we look up to them so much for all that they face and help us with. They did this, the setting up of the room on a, 15-hour notice, and we're grateful to all of it. Those sweethearts are Doreen Gallagher and Detective Julie McDonald. And this is our moderator I'm introducing you to, and she was going to be a helper to me at one time, and then the district attorney's office snatched her away. Her name is Camila Mercado Valdez. She's the victim witness advocate at our district attorney's office in section. And this young man here also, please stand up because I don't know your name yet.
I'm Adam Stewart. I'm the ADA for the Brookline District Court right
now. Okay. And who is this man in gray, the blue tie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Chaz Carey. I'm the new town administrator.
Oh, I'm sorry. You look different on TV.
Yes.
I watched you last night. You had glasses. Oh, there he is. This guy, I used to work for him. This is District Attorney Michael Morrissey. He helped us keep the court in Brookline, along with the help of some others as well. Susan Howard, me, and in the county. Yes, but it's here in Brookline, and we need it to help divert more of the people and students from the court system and the horrible situations that go on there. Now, I introduce you to the moderator, and I forgot what she's supposed to do, but I also have one more duty, and that is I want to introduce the select board that are here, and I'm grateful to you for being here, and thank you for announcing that, John, last night on the selectmen's meeting. Bernard Green is here. He's over there. John Von Skoyek's in the front row. Miriam, where's Miriam? Miriam, you moved you. All right, Miriam Ashkenazi. Oh, she stands up, atta girl, put him up. And I don't know if is Heather still away? She's not here yet. Michael Sandman also is not here yet. I could introduce you all, but most of you know each other, do you not? I know you. And I'm glad you're on the internet speaking up. This is our 13th anniversary of the vigil for Jennifer Lynch. And when you think that that many years have gone by, and that our memory as a community, a group of women and men who want some answers, and we want some activity to getting the information out about issues dealing with not only domestic violence, but sexual violence and all its hidden garments as such. Jennifer was a sweet young girl who used to work in town hall. I think she worked in the health department. Thank you, Bill. Her mom worked here too. Most of you know Patty. And Patty has since moved to the west, she and John. And so we have vowed to keep alive the issues that bring about some of the violence and death that we as a community wish to get the hell out of our town, and that we need ways of reaching every part of our community, so that there are meetings held by every manager of whatever department that talks about things to look at to see if someone is suffering from any kind of violence. That might be something that can be helped through our, well, you can say legal system, but also the health system. And they aren't exactly putting the whistle out for me to shut up, but we're going to go on with our, I don't know if you all got a program, they're at the end of the table. And as you can see, our acting chief, Jennifer Pastor, where is she? Oh, there she is. And we want to give a big clap to her because it's an honor that we have her finally as our chief of police. You can call it acting all you want. She has all the qualities, all the dimensions. She's got the strength of her department behind her, and she's our community person. That's the acting chief. You have to know your damn community, the ins and outs and ups and downs, so that you can protect us and help us move forward on some, not only this issue, but other issues, the bullying that goes on everywhere, including the senior group, too, and I'll speak to that. Not today. But anyway, so thank you for coming, Chief. And I'm not calling you acting anything, you're Chief. And now I'm going to reintroduce my former boss and a man who knows where the bodies are buried. I'm not there yet. Okay, and I'm so glad you're here too, Michael. All right, I'll go down. And then Felina Silver Robinson will read a poem that she wrote. Tommy Vitolo, you know him. He's our very active and decent town state legislature who just came off a good victory. And we're glad you're here, Tommy. Thank you. And he's going to speak. And then Susan Howard's over there in the corner. She just got off a bum leg.
Heather's here.
Heather's here. Let's give her a clap, too. Come on in, Heather. Don't let the bugs in. Some of the guys in the hall complain about the bugs, but we like the fresh air. Anyway, and then Susan is going to close out and let us know what's happening. Thank you very much. With the moderator, it's your turn to talk. I'm wrapped up. All right, thank you. They don't want me to fall in my chair.
Thank you, Rita, for your welcome.
You can stay in my chair. I'm going to stay here.
My name's Camila. I'm going to be the moderator for today. Our first speaker is going to be Chief Jennifer Pastor. So if everyone could welcome her with a nice round of applause.
Now I'm all blushy. Thank you, Rita. Well, as you've heard a few times now, my name is Jen Pastor, and I am the acting chief of police here in Brookline, the town where I grew up, and a town I still love very much. I really appreciate the hard work that went on behind the scenes over the past few months to make sure this event happened tonight. I want to especially thank the members of my department's domestic violence unit, Sergeant Brian Sutherland, who's in that corner, trying to hide in the corner back there, Detective Julie McDonald, who I just saw, but they all hide, but she's over there. And of course, our department's longtime domestic violence victim advocate, Dorian Gallagher, in the back. I want to make sure that they're recognized not just for this event, but for all of the work that they do every day to support victims of intimate partner violence in our community. Due to the sensitive nature of their cases, they don't often get a lot of public recognition, but I've witnessed firsthand the work that they do around the clock, on scheduled days off, on vacation time, on maternity leave, to support all the people who need them, and I couldn't be more proud of them, and so thank you all. Pat Norling, if you happen to hear this wherever you are, you know I love you too. I also want to take a minute to acknowledge the 2 officers who were killed last night and the 3rd officer who was seriously injured after responding to a report of a domestic disturbance in Bristol, Connecticut. Sergeant Dustin DeMonte was 35 years old. He lives behind his wife and 2 children with a 3rd child on the way. Officer Alex Hamzy was 34 years old. He lives behind a wife, both parents, and his sisters. The injured officer, 26-year-old Alex Irado, underwent surgery for a severe gunshot wound and has been released from the hospital. I hope that you will honor their sacrifice and keep the families they left behind in your prayers during these very difficult weeks and years ahead. I grew up across the street from here on Brick Street. My friend Holly grew up at the bottom of Hurd Road. When there were no leaves on the trees, I could see into the 1st floor apartment that Holly shared with her mom from my 2nd floor window. Holly's mom was a beautiful woman named Janet Lynch, who should have turned 71 this past Tuesday. Instead, Janet was murdered by her boyfriend in February of 1995, just after we left for college. Holly is currently married to an incredible man. They have a daughter and a granddaughter now of their own. I've never spoken publicly about her mother, and my thinking was that it's not my story to tell. While we were growing up, and in many ways still now, domestic violence was a very private matter. We were conditioned to keep secrets based on the belief that we were helping the victims by doing so. By not talking about it, except for, of course, behind her back, we sent a message to Holly that she shouldn't talk about it either. I can't imagine how isolating and terrifying that must have been for a teenage girl of a single mom here in this community. But Holly was resilient and stronger than most people I know. One of the unfortunate realities of domestic violence cases is that, in almost all cases, the full weight of escaping an abusive situation rests entirely on the victim. My memories of Janet were when Holly and I were students at Pierce, before her mom met the boyfriend who would ultimately kill her. And what I remember about Janet are her giant brown eyes, her huge perfect smile, her freckles, and her brown curly hair. She had the kind of hair that in the 80s everybody was trying to achieve through an Ogilvy home perm. She was artistic, she had a contagious laugh, she was confident, and she was a light. I remember her amazing macaroni and cheese, and the fact that on Sunday mornings she and Holly would get croissants. Chocolate for Holly and ham and cheese for Janet. And that was pretty much the most exotic thing that I had ever seen at the time. All those beautiful things about Janet were slowly chipped away, but at the time, I didn't know why. Holly was a fiercely loyal daughter in the only way that she knew how to be, by keeping her mom's secrets. She only recently told me about the times that she had to take matters into her own hands by physically defending her mother with a knife at one point and a bat at another. At 16 years old, Holly made the impossible choice to leave her mother behind and go live with a friend in Village Way, just so that she could finish high school and plan her escape. Her mom's boyfriend had moved in, and Holly decided she just couldn't fight it anymore, so she chose flight. Not more than 2 years later, her mom was dead. When I asked Holly if I could talk about her mom tonight, she was so happy to have her remembered here in this space. She wanted her story to have purpose, and we thought about what that should look like. I asked her what could have been done differently. Until this day, she's still not quite sure. She did offer some insight, things that might help us think about the way that our kids present, either while at school or out in the community. Holly told me that she overcompensated for what was happening at home by white-knuckling through her day, making sure everything she did was perfect and everything appeared perfect, because she lived in paralyzing fear of the abuse being discovered. She knew her mom's life was in danger, but she didn't know what to do about it. She was just a kid, and she's going to have to live with that guilt for the rest of her life. At the same time, Holly's husband is a teacher now, and he has cases where the opposite seems to be true, where kids are acting defiantly because of the trauma in their lives. It's hard to know which kids are suffering because of domestic violence and which kids are suffering for any number of other reasons. Holly acknowledged that she never invited any of us into her house because there were days, as the days went on, they were getting more and more unpredictable, and she never knew what she'd be walking into. One thing that seems clear to me is that we have to give our young people the space and the language to talk about partner violence on their own terms, and we have to have trained, interested adults who are not only willing to listen, but who are armed with the information to be able to actually help when called upon to do so. Since the beginning of the year, the members of our department's domestic violence unit have assisted survivors with obtaining 77 restraining orders and other means of protection. Many of these calls come from victims who might not be ready to file formal police report, but they want to explore their options. Our patrol officers have assisted with over 70 calls for domestic violence since the start of the year, which means that at least 1 to 2 calls per week rise to the level of a police response. Domestic violence is happening in our community, and we have to be willing to have the difficult conversations about it so that we can help kids like Holly break the cycle before a tragedy occurs. Thank you all for your dedication to the prevention of domestic violence and support of the survivors in our community, because as we know, no one agency can do it alone. With that, I'll turn it over to District Attorney Morrissey.
Thank you, Chief. It's Rita, it's good to see you haven't picked up a filter yet, and you don't have you haven't lost the ability to have an opinion on something. So I too actually was happy to learn that you have a new chief, and I did call up and offer her my condolences. I mean my assistance. But part of what you heard from the chief initially was, if you think about it, this is a pretty unique community. You have your own courthouse, and that's very important because some of the things we're able to do in that courthouse we can't do in other parts of the county, and that's really with the help of the people who work there, as well as the district attorney's office, the defense team, probation, and the police department. And so we get some unique outcomes sometimes that I think serve us all well. But when I heard the chief introduce the whole team, there are very few people who are as committed as this town to domestic violence, with dedicated people, including a victim advocate. We don't find that really anyplace else throughout Norfolk County. We do have at the courthouse and the district attorney's office a victim advocate who will also work closely with the department. And my numbers are a little bit old, Chief. I only had 76 restraining orders at HBO, so there had to be another one in the past week. But just to say that you're not immune from the problem that affects all of us throughout, whether it's through the county or throughout the Commonwealth of the country. And just so you know that we were concerned during COVID in particular, where people were shut in and people who probably could have used a little bit more space cooped up together. Probably wasn't the best situation for some families, mental health issues, a lot of things that would happen. But just so you have an idea, the chief corrected me, 77 restraining orders or harassment prevention orders year to date. There was 110 filed last year in 2021, 92 were filed in 2020. Now, they estimate about 85% of those ended up with the court issuing a restraining order or a harassment prevention order. But what that really says to us is, in the figures we don't have, is those people who really have missed that opportunity to get help and assistance. And I don't know how to measure that other than the work that each and every one of you do, the police department, the advocate. I did a show this week with Susan Howarth because this is the month for domestic violence. I woke up, as the chief pointed out this morning, the first thing I heard on the news was police officers responding to a domestic violence incident in Bristol, Connecticut. And while it was two brothers fighting, the police, and it's not lost on me, and it's hopefully not lost on many of you, the hardest part that they often have, the most difficult cases that they often see are the domestic situations because they just don't know what they're getting into. And those cases spill into the court, and as we try to sort them out, they're very difficult for the people who work with me and for me to try to make sure that the victim is safe, and if the perpetrator needs help and assistance, that can be everything from being temporarily locked up, evaluation counseling, to restraining orders and enforcement and our other activities. But the hard part is you're dealing with human nature. And the first question, Susan must go to the same school as you did, Rita, because she doesn't have too much of a filter either. So the first question was, will domestic violence ever end? And I don't see it ending. I see as just human nature being what it is, and some of the problems we face in society. I think that we're always going to have a battle, and we do the best we can. This community does an awesome job in trying to put the word out, and I think that's the most important thing. Whether you in the high school, and a lot of the people here have got the word, and starting at a young age with relationships and how we deal with people, it's just something that we're going to have to build on some of the successes, and we're going to run into those little dips too, some of those failures. We know it, and we hope that it doesn't end in a tragic outcome that Jennifer saw those many years ago. So I just wanted to say I'm happy to be a small part of that effort to try to educate and prevent violence and to protect people from the violence in the domestic situations. And thank you all for the continuing invitation to come here this year. It is the month, and this is an important day in this community where we can help get the word out. So thank you all for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be State Representative Tommy Vitolo. So everyone, please give him a warm welcome.
I regret that I did not have the chance to put my notes on a piece of paper, so I'm going to cheat and use my phone a little bit. Thank you for having me, and thank you for making this a big deal. Right? It's a big deal every time an officer gets a call, and we have a role to play making it a big deal the rest of the time. Because by talking about it, by working together on different ways of helping people through these tragedies, we won't end domestic violence, but we sure as heck can reduce the frequency and the severity and make sure victims come out a little bit less damaged than they would have otherwise, and we damn well ought to. I want to recognize some of my friends who are here who I know have done this work for so long, including Rita and Susan Howard. I also want to recognize Kathleen Cavell, who works not on domestic violence, but on workplace sexual violence by finding teachers who have no business being in classrooms and getting them out. And that's not the same thing, but it's also really important. And it's yet another way that we're thinking about protecting people who are victims of that sort of violence. And I want to mention the Bruin decision, which was the Supreme Court decision that frankly makes it easier for people to have guns, because addressing gun violence is addressing domestic violence and vice versa. If there is a gun in the home, domestic violence is 5 times more likely to result in death. 5 times more likely. And so keeping guns out of houses in which they don't belong is critical. I'm proud of the work that the legislature did this past session in immediately responding to the Bruin decision and rewriting our gun laws so that they are protected from this decision, while still allowing folks like Chief Pastor to review those applications for guns so that we can make sure on a case-by-case basis that we're doing everything we can to keep guns out of the homes of places where they are so incredibly dangerous. And I could give you a bunch of details about it, but I'd rather you hear from some other folks. So I'm going to end it there. And again, thank all of the folks in this room who have worked so hard to both help protect and help heal victims of domestic violence.
Thank you. Up next, we have Susan Howard, who's going to come up and say a few words. Everyone, please put your hands together for Susan.
Rita and I are the Cane Brigade. I just want you to know. And I've learned that this is not only an aid, but it can also be a weapon when you need to get to the front of the line in a restaurant or at Angel Memorial. Anyway, I was asked to close the program, but in thinking about it, we can't close the program. The work goes on day after day, as District Attorney Morrissey knows, night after night. I want to thank you all for coming, particularly the Select Board. Heather, where's Heather? Right there, thank you, and for announcing it. I'm not going to name everybody because Rita sort of stole my thunder. I was supposed to. But I do want to mention Ian Pallenbaum, who's standing in the back hiding, I think, who is head of the Suffolk County Domestic Violence and Rape Unit, and he really is an incredible assistant DA, and I have to tell you, as a defense attorney, very fair. Along with District Attorney Morrissey, and this is going to be sort of the good District Attorney Morrissey fan club, Norfolk County is an incredible county to practice in as a defense attorney, regardless of what happens with my clients. And quite frankly, it's very hard to win a case in the Brookline court because the police do everything right. I can't find anything that I can pick on when it comes to evidence or defense. Seriously, you do a great job. But there are some counties that we aren't as lucky, where there's fair reception, they listen. District Attorney's Office, the Brookline Court, they listen. I'm not going to go on and on, but I do want to thank the Select Board, Cheryl Ann Snyder and Sophie, for the work they do in emergency management during COVID. Their work was instrumental in saving so many lives in this town. So I'm going to end with a quote. When I graduated law school, which was late in life, I went in my mid-40s, I went to a seminar at Harvard University that was held by Sarah Buell. I don't know if you know the name Sarah Buell, but she was basically the founder and the promoter of, yes, Julie does, of domestic violence. I had never really heard the term domestic violence. Maybe I should have, but I hadn't. It wasn't taught in law schools. I didn't hear it in Brookline. Thank goodness maybe I should have, but I didn't hear it in my family. I don't know that I should have or not. And she ended her speech with a quote that I've never forgotten, and I use it every time I speak. If you have never been abused, consider yourself blessed. She was a woman who grew up in New York. She went to the city college. She married to an abuser. She escaped to northern Vermont with her little 3 or 4-year-old daughter. On a Saturday, she was in a laundromat in this stinky little town, not stinky, a little town in Vermont. And who walks in but her ex-husband? She somehow escaped and got to Cambridge, got herself into Harvard Law School, and then went on to sort of found the domestic violence unit. So please remember those words. If you've never been abused, consider yourself blessed, and continue the good work, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to have some Brookline High peer leaders come up to read some reflections. Please welcome them. Thank you.
The way. The way is long, let us go together. The way is difficult, let us help each other. The way is joyful, let us share it. The way is ours alone, let us go in love. The way grows before us, let us begin.
Inner peace. I used to be a butterfly. I used to be free. Now that I'm a human being, I'm grounded like a tree. I'm not allowed to fly around. I'm not allowed to think. Society has tied me down and taken away that link. However, I won't stand for it. I'm fighting for the cause. Creativity lets us open up away from society's claws. Let me be an individual. Let me be free. Allow me to be free with thought, and I instead of we. So I need a piece of silence, a bit of it every day. Calm comes through meditation and guides me on my way.
Okay, so I want to give a thank you to Segal Reese, who's the new Director of Public Health and Human Services. I also want to give a thank you to the Brookline Domestic Roundtable and the Jennifer Lynch Committee Against Domestic Violence, as well as BIG. And I want to thank all of you guys for showing up and listening to us. Thank you so much for coming.